Hi everyone, welcome to Clutch Entertainment today. And today we have Nick on the show. He's a t-shirt design expert. What are you exactly? A quality control manager?
Yeah, I work at a print shop and I'm the quality control manager there.
Gotcha. So we're gonna be talking about like how t-shirts are made, the process, like how many employees there are, just a various amount of different things going into t-shirts. Do you want to talk about a little bit about yourself, Nick?
Sure. I I've always loved t-shirts actually, and my friend worked at a screen printing shop. Um, and she got me the job there because they were hiring, and I was like, all right, what's this all about? So I went and checked it out and saw that it was really cool. And I got to learn how to make shirts, and I've been there for 6.5 years now.
That's
So
awesome. Do you ever get to design your own shirts, like for yourself?
yeah, actually the one I'm wearing right now, I designed this.
Oh, that's really cool. That's a
Yeah.
Pokemon.
It is. It is.
Yeah, yeah, that's really awesome. That's really awesome.
Yeah.
Do you do like custom orders?
Yeah, mostly all the orders are custom orders. So pretty much anything anybody wants on a t-shirt, we can design and make.
Gotcha. So you get a lot of repeat orders, like people ordering constantly?
Yeah, actually. So we'll have reorders, sometimes like schools order something or like a team will order shirts or, sometimes people just order shirts and they sell them and then they're like, "Oh wow, those sold so much, we need to reorder them." So
Hmm.
we have a
Makes
lot of
sense.
repeat customers. Yeah.
So how's the process work? Like give me like the chain of like the order of how like who goes to the information and then basically like how it goes through the process and the machines and stuff like that.
Okay.
Don't go into that.
Yeah. So basically, from start to finish, the customer comes in or they'll email and they'll have like sometimes they'll just have a design concept or sometimes they'll have like an actual image and they'll say, I want this on a t-shirt.
Hmm.
And so then we have graphic artists in-house, um, and they will look at the design or they will put it together, kind of communicate back and forth with the customer
Hmm.
and how it works, and how it looks. Um, And then once the customer approves the design, then they will send the design off to our computer. Um, and we have a room that it basically like prints the design onto a screen. Um, and depending on how many colors your shirt is, that's how many screens are in the order. And so each screen is a different color. And then once it goes to the computer and gets printed onto the screen, then it goes onto a light table and that image is like burned. It gets like cured into the um screen and then it gets washed off. So like all there's emulsion on the
So it
screen
makes a
and
mold basically of it.
kind of. So there's like emulsion on the screen
Hmm.
and the emulsion's not cured yet. And what it'll do is the machine prints kind of like an ink printer. It'll like print on an image onto the screen and then it
Hmm.
goes in a light table and that gets flashed. And all of the emulsion that doesn't have the image on it will cure, but the emulsion that has the image over it, since it's like a dark image, it won't cure. And then it gets sprayed out, and that image gets sprayed out, and that's what the ink goes through on the screen to make your image onto the shirt.
Oh wow. Wow. How long does it take to dry exactly?
Um, well, it just depends on the shop and how you dry. But we can usually have a screen dry within like 6 to 10 minutes. So like if somebody calls and like really needs a rush order right away, we can burn a screen, make a screen, and have it ready in like 10 minutes.
Oh really? So like you can print off shirts in 10 minutes. There's no like
Well,
hourly kind of thing.
I mean, we have to have the artwork done because the artwork takes a while.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and you have to have like an Illustrator file or like a vector file, in order for the machine to recognize it. Um,
What about like PNGs or JPEGs? It doesn't recognize any of those.
no, so if you have those, the graphic artist would have to like either retrace them or put them in like Illustrator and turn them into a vector file.
Wow, that's interesting. Because you'd think that people can just send in the photos and then just get them printed off.
Right. I mean, they do, but we have to. It's not so simple as like, okay, I'm going to send you a photo and I'll make the screen. Like the
That's what
graphic
I
art,
thought it was. So
the graphic artists have to like look at the photo and then sometimes, like, let's say that you want an image and there's like a field and there's like a bunch of flowers and the sun and clouds and like whatever, I don't know. And let's say there's like 8 colors in the image. Well, the more colors that an image is, the more expensive it is to print. Um, and so some people will be like, okay, we can take out, I only want it to be 2 or 3 colors. And so then you can kind of like do
Hmm.
some cool things with the colors to kind of fill in where, or you can even like use the shirt color. Like in my shirt, uh this brown is actually the orange that's here. It's just directly onto the shirt color.
Oh,
So like this
okay.
it has white underneath of it. Um, and so it makes it look orange, but since this is a dark green shirt, we put the orange directly onto the dark green and it makes it look brown. So
Interesting.
that's one color, instead of paying for 2 colors, it's just one.
That's interesting because I wouldn't think it's the same color when I look at your shirt, you
Right,
know?
exactly. And the same thing with like the um like this lighter green and the darker green. There's just little dots of white over the lighter green to make it look lighter.
So it makes it more cost efficient, basically.
Yeah, pretty much. This is only 3 colors, even though it looks like it's 5.
Hmm.
So it makes it more cost efficient. That's right.
How much is like the ink really expensive to like give out to these printer companies like yours to print
Um,
t-shirts?
it depends on the size. So like you can buy them in like quarts or gallons or like a 5 gallon. So like black and white ink we use the most of, and we just buy them in
Mhm.
like gallon buckets.
How much do they
Um,
typically like 5 gallons? How much does that cost typically?
Probably a few $100s. I think a regular 1 gallon bucket of colored ink is like 60, 60, $70, depending on the
Gotcha. Yeah,
company.
ink's not for any kind of printing. It's not cheap.
No,
So
but I mean, that can last a while, a gallon of ink. Just depends on how many shirts you print.
yeah, probably the more you have too, the less likely it is to dry up too, right?
Yeah, the ink doesn't really dry out. Like we leave it open with the lid off.
So
Um,
so is it like a toner kind of thing, like a printer, or is it more like a bucket,
it's a bucket. It's a bucket of ink.
like
Um,
paint almost?
it looks like a paint bucket, but paint dries out. It's not paint. Don't call it paint. People in the screen printing industry will get on you if you call it paint.
Does anybody ever mistake it for paint?
Oh, all the time. Customers call it paint all the time, and we're like, ink.
Right, right. I've never seen it in that form, so that's interesting.
It's made of it's like it's plastisol, so it's like it's made of like a plastic almost. So like the ink is like plastic and it cures with heat. Um
Interesting.
yeah, so basically um once the screens are burned, and then each one is like a different color, it'll go on an automatic printing press and then you have to the screens lock into the press. Um and then you have to line them up. So we have this thing, it's really cool. It's called a tri-sync. um Basically you put it onto the press and the screen goes down on it and it like locks into the corner of the
Hmm.
press, and then each screen goes over it and like locks into the same position. And so in theory your image will all be lined up using the tri-sync, but sometimes you have to make little micro adjustments to like move one of
Hmm.
the colors over. um and so they'll do a test print. They'll do something called a test print, which is like not an actual shirt from the order. They'll take like a scrap shirt and they'll print the image onto it to make sure that it looks right. And
Yeah,
then they
so that
can
way you don't print like 100 copies and it's all wrong.
right, exactly,
And then you gotta
exactly.
throw those away, right? Is that what happens if you mess up?
Yeah, so if we mess up a shirt, there's a couple different things we can do. Um we have a stock, so we have like blank shirts. So if we mess one up, we can just like pull one from stock and reprint it and then just like toss the messed up one. Or sometimes, like, let's say that like I got this ink like over here and it's not supposed to be there. We have this really cool machine. It has like suction on it, and you put the t-shirt on top of it. It's like a grate, and you put this t-shirt on top, and then we have like this spray gun, and it has this chemical in it, which when you spray it on, it actually sprays the ink out of the shirt, and it looks like it was never there.
Interesting. So what happens if that would get on your skin? Would that pull your skin off?
I've gotten it on my skin before. It is very cold. And I'm sure if it was on for longer than a second, it would probably eat away at your skin.
Yeah, it sounds like an acid type thing.
Yeah, it is. There's a lot of warnings on it. It's like, if you're pregnant, you should not use this or inhale this. And then it's
Right.
like,
Well, that's
no,
all paints and inks, though.
yeah, use in a well ventilated area and all that stuff. So
Gotcha. So is it in like a warehouse where you make all the t-shirts?
yeah, we have mhm, it's kind of like a warehouse. So we have like a concrete floor and it's like
Is
a
there like
brick.
an assembly line too with it?
Kind of. So there's the presses. So and then there's a dryer. So and a dryer belt. So
Mm,
basically I'm trying to think of what it would look like. It's kind of just a big conveyor belt, but it's covered. And so once
mm,
the shirts get printed, the wet ink is on there. They go onto the dryer belt, and then they go underneath the dryer, and they get cured at a certain temperature for a certain amount of time. And then on the other side, there's a quality control assistant, or the people that I'm in charge of.
mm.
Um, and they are there, and they take the shirts off the dryer belt and they stack them onto a table. And then they put them in stacks of 12. And so then once there's 12 t-shirts, they fold them up and put them in a box. And then 12 t-shirts, fold them up, put them in a box. And so it's kind of like a little assembly line. Because you take the shirts down there, they get printed, they go down the dryer, and then they go into the box. Um, and the quality control person they're looking for to make sure that like all the colors on the shirt are correct and like everything is spelled correctly and like the image looks how it's supposed to look. Because if a shirt comes down and it doesn't look right, they have to tell the printer to stop printing and to fix it before they print more t-shirts.
Gotcha. Gotcha. What about like hoodies? Like, is hoodies the same process as the t-shirts?
Yeah, it's pretty much the same except for you have to be careful because there's only a certain length that we can print on an image. Like this is a pretty big image. I think it's like 13 inches maybe.
Hmm.
But on hoodies, people don't think about this. They have the pocket, right? So from the collar of the hoodie to the
The pocket. Yeah.
only so big. So a lot of times on hoodies, you have to actually make the image smaller in order to be able to print on.
Well, hoodies are more bulky too. So does that affect how it presses onto it?
Um, kind of. So there's two different kinds of ink. There's like regular ink and poly ink. Um, and the chemical compound of the ink is a little bit different depending on what kind of garment you put it on. Um, and they also cure at different temperatures. And the cool thing is when the shirts go on the press, they you load them like onto a pallet and there's the spray adhesive that you can spray onto the pallet to make the inside of the hoodie stick onto the
Hmm.
pallet and it doesn't move around when it gets printed onto.
Oh, okay. Well, that's
Yeah.
pretty nice. What about branding though? Like, do you have any like machines that like brand shirts?
Um,
Like with heat instead of like, like a label printer, how they have like heat instead of like ink?
right. So we don't really have that. I can tell you that we have a couple companies that get their branding like as a tag in the nape of the shirt, like inside where the tag would go and the collar.
Oh, okay. So it's not so much ink printing on the shirts though.
It right, it kind of is. So we have a heat press. So the way that that works is like we have this certain paper and you print the logo onto that
Hmm.
paper, but the tags are only this big and the paper is like this big. So
Right.
we'll like 30 tags, 20 to 30 tags on one piece of paper, and then they get dipped like once the ink is wet, it gets dipped in like this adhesive.
Hmm.
Um, and then that also goes down the dryer to cure, and then we cut them into individual tags. And then what we'll do is we have a heat press, and so we'll put the collar onto the heat press, put the tag on it, and then it presses it for like 6 seconds, and then you rip off the paper, and there's your
Oh,
tag.
okay. Gotcha. Gotcha.
Yeah.
So are there any other like technical things about t-shirts we should know?
Um, I mean, there's all kinds of things about t-shirts. So there's like 100% cotton, there's polyester, there's a blend. I think blends feel the best, so that's good if you're getting t-shirts, get a cotton poly blend. Um, And I don't know, there's just a lot that goes into it that people don't realize because like kind of like how I was telling you with this, there
Mhm.
is white ink underneath of this green because if this green was just printed directly onto the shirt, it would look a lot darker. Um, and that's called an underbase. So A lot of shirts, a lot of the times will have a white underbase underneath that you don't even realize that they have. And then like this, his eyes are white. And so even though that was printed with the underbase, you want the white to be a little brighter and shine. And that's called a highlight. Um,
Hmm.
so an underbase is like the whole image of white, and a highlight is where it prints white by itself after all the other colors have printed.
Oh, cool. Interesting.
Mhm.
Interesting. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for watching Clutch Entertainment today, and thank you for being on the show today, Nick. Appreciate your expertise. And if
Yeah.
you have any other comments, you can just drop in the comment section below, and Nick can answer your questions if you have any additional questions with the t-shirts. So, thanks a lot, Nick, for being on the show, and hopefully, you all have a great day.
Yeah, it was awesome. Thank you.
All right, bye.
Bye.